Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Chaitanya Caritāmrta overview class. Thank you for joining. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Chaitanya Charitamrita overview class. We are discussing from Ādī-Līlā. We are on chapter 7, Lord Chaitanya and 5 features. So Kaviraj Goswami, after describing the uh, Tattva of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaitacharya, and now he is describing the Pancha Tattva as he mentions in the first verse. Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktan Ishan Ishavatakam Tat Prakasham Tatat Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Sangakam. So he is describing Panch Tattva, and in this we discussed so far how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna in the spiritual world, he planned to drown the entire world in the prema. And when he appeared as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was drowning everyone, but few were running away. So we discussed till 32 verse. So, in the previous 29, 30, 31 verses, Viraj Goswami describes that there were few Mayavadis, Karmanists, that means fruity workers, then false logicians, some people who were criticizing, atheists, and fallen students. Mayavadi Karmanishta Kutarkigan, Nindaka Pashandiyat Paduya Adham, Sai Saba Mahadaksha Dhaya Palaya, Ebanya Tasabar Chuite Narila. So they were becoming very expert. They were thinking that they have become expert and they will not get touched by this flood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Saisab Mahadaksha. They were very expertly trying to avoid Krishna consciousness. That's how many people, they don't want to come in touch with Krishna consciousness. They are fearful. Because they know that if I enter this, I'll not be able to enjoy. And for them, they are they are dedicated to sense gratification. Kama Kami, as Bhagavad Gita says, Kama Kami. They are desiring more and more material desires, so they don't want to come in touch with anything related to Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada in that writes that, these Mayavadis, just like modern impersonalists, they are also not interested in Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, and in fact they deride Avajananti Mama Mudha Manushim Tanumashritam. So Prabhupada quotes this, that when Krishna appears in a human form, those who are foolish, they tell, oh, God has become a human. That's how Mayavadis tell, that when a Supreme Brahman gets covered by mode of goodness, he comes as avatar. Supreme Brahman covered by mode of passion becomes all the living entities. Supreme Brahman, covered by ignorance, becomes dead matter. That's how they speculate. That's how they tell, you know. So that's how Mayavadis are. So Prabhupada writes, Mayavadis consider that they are devotional service is a fruitive activity, and they think that all these devotees who are reading Bhagavatam and practicing bhakti, they will get purified by this philosophical understanding, and then they will come to the point of mukti, liberation. That is what they think, and therefore they criticize devotional service. They criticize devotees. Oh, you are practicing something which is very low. Srila Prabhupada would give a simple argument to it. He would tell that if anyone in this world likes to do something which is difficult, if bhakti is so easy, then why don't you do it? Bhakti is not so easy. That's why people don't do it. So therefore, Mahaprabhu was thinking how to bring these people to Krishna consciousness. Taha dekhi Mahaprabhu kore na chintan, Jagat Dubaile Ami Karinu Jatan. Oh, Mahaprabhu is thinking. Just see the magnanimous nature of Mahaprabhu. Supreme Lord is thinking about insignificant living entities. That is the extent Supreme Lord can go to. He doesn't want to leave in one living entity. Taha dekhi Mahaprabhu Karena Chintan. Jagata Dubaite Ami Korinu Yatan. I'm trying to drown the entire world in this holy name, in this love of God. But Keha Idaila Pratigya Hoila Bhanga. Tastaba Dubaite Patiba Kichuranga. So just see, this is a very, very important verse. So where Mahaprabhu is telling Keha Idaila. Some people are running away. Pratigya Hoila Bhanga. This is my pratigya. So Supreme Lord has taken a vow to deliver each and every living entity, and he is working so very hard. That is the hope for all of us. He is more interested and more serious in bringing us back to his abode than we are interested in going back. That is our hope. That's why even since millions of lifetimes, we have not turned our face towards Krishna, but still he has not given up on us. That is the hope for all of us. So therefore, it is very, very important to understand the magnanimous nature of Krishna, magnanimous nature of Mahaprabhu. Keha keha edaila pratigya hoila bhang. Tasaba dubaile patiba kichurang. I shall devise a trick to drown them also. Just see. Mahaprabhu is tricking all the living entities. Yes, actually, Prabhupada, he was telling once that, oh, I came here and I tricked all of you to come to spiritual life. As Bhagavatam describes, great souls cheat for the great cause. So that is the importance of even great souls cheating. So therefore, Krishna is trying his best, Mahaprabhu is trying his best to bring all the living entities. Keha kehe edaila pratigya hoila bhanga. He doesn't want to, break his vow of delivering each and every living entity. And therefore, he is ready to go to any extent. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, here is a very important point. Mahaprabhu, he is, intent on inventing a new way to capture all these people. And that's how devotees should be. So Prabhupada says, this is a symptom of an acharya. Acharya means what? He is ready to invent newer and newer ways to bring people back to spiritual world. That is the importance of acharya. That is the role of an acharya. And that's how Srila Prabhupada, he tried his best to bring all the living entities by devising so many different tricks, so many different ways. That is a symptom of an acharya. So Prabhupada writes that, an acharya can make some changes. So one time one disciple was asking Prabhupada. So Prabhupada told once that, principles can be, the details can be changed, but principle remains the same. So this one devotee asked Prabhupada, how to understand what is a principle and what is a detail, because sometimes they look very similar. Prabhupada said, it requires little intelligence. If we are in tune, if we are connected to Krishna, dadami buddhi yogam tam tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. So if we are connected to Krishna, if because an acharya is connected to Krishna, he is given all the intelligence, pativat ichuranga, so that he can, devise newer and newer ways to bring people back to the spiritual world. Prabhupada writes that, acharya cannot be expected to conform to a stereotype. Oh, it has been going on since so many thousands of years, so it should go like that only. No. Therefore, a devotee, a preacher of Krishna consciousness should be very much aware of what is happening in the society and the surroundings, and they have to, mold themselves so that people can accept the philosophy, accept the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So the knowledge remains the same, just the packaging changes. So that is what is the role of a preacher, and that is an acharya. So Prabhupada writes, acharya, he doesn't stick to one stereotype thing. He invents newer and newer ways so that people can take to Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada writes, just sometimes those who are jealous, they are criticizing our Krishna consciousness movement. Some Brahmanas from India, they are criticizing, oh, Swami Prabhupada, he allows boys and girls, to go together and they distribute books and they stay in temple. Prabhupada writes, so such people are criticizing us. But Prabhupada writes, Prabhupada uses very strong words in these purports. He says these rascals should consider that one cannot suddenly change a community's social customs. Because, Prabhupada writes, so these boys and girls, they are, used to staying together. So we cannot change the customs immediately. But we are not allowing them to, break 4 regulative principles. We are training them systematically to become preachers of Krishna consciousness. And they are following the principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. And then Prabhupada writes, as far as these girls are concerned in our Krishna consciousness movement, they are not ordinary girls. They're as good as their brothers who are preaching Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada, he would give, very, very strong support to all his lady disciples. Although Prabhupada was very much against this, women's liberation movement and all that. But Prabhupada, why he was saying that? Because, women need to be protected. It is not the question of abuse. As Vedic culture, it is the topmost culture of respect. And women are respected a lot. So Prabhupada writes, in the Western culture, boys and girls, they are used to stay together. So we cannot change the customs, but we are strictly following all the Vedic principles. Prabhupada writes, these jealous fools who are criticizing the intermingling of boys and girls, they'll be simply satisfied. They will have to be satisfied with their own foolishness. Prabhupada uses very strong words. They will have to be satisfied with their own foolishness because they cannot think how to spread Krishna consciousness movement. They'll be just busy in criticizing. That's all. So Prabhupada, he would be very, very protective of his disciples, because many times his disciples would go to some place and they would be criticized. One time, one of the disciples, he went to one of the temples in Vrindavan, Goswami temples, and this one of the pujari was there. He said, "Oh, you have come from America. Oh, you have taken to Krishna consciousness. Oh, good, good. Keep on chanting, keep on practicing. In next life, you will take birth in Vrindavan, and you will get a chance to take birth in a Goswami family." So this devotee was apparently a little confused and happy also. Okay, because he was thinking, anyways, I'm so fallen. Next life, I'll get a very nice elevated birth. So he came back and told Srila Prabhupada what this priest told him. So the Prabhupada, to his surprise, said, just go and tell him, you go on serving deities throughout your life, and next life you will take birth as a hippie in Los Angeles, and then you will take to Krishna consciousness, and then your life will become perfect. So that's how Prabhupada was. Prabhupada was very, very protective. So therefore, Mahaprabhu is thinking, he is devising a trick. एतबली मने किछु करिया विचार संन्यास आश्रमे प्रभु कोरिला अंगीकार. Etaboli, thinking like this, he accepted the sannyas order. This shows the extreme compassion of the Supreme Lord. Let's see. The Supreme Lord, who is the reservoir of all the six opulences, he is ready to give up all his opulences to reclaim the fallen conditioned souls of this world. Who can be more magnanimous and benevolent than this personality? Who can do that? Who will not get attracted to such personality? Who has everything but just to attract a person, insignificant living entity, he is ready to become a sannyasi and a beggar. Chaitanya Bhagavat describes that Mahaprabhu is thinking, Nimai Pandit, I will become beggar, and I'll go at the door of all these people and I'll beg. Because all these, one of the students, he tried to, he was making a plan how to beat Nimai Pandit. So Mahaprabhu thought, oh, I will take sannyas, I will become a beggar, and I will go at the home of all these people, and then they will fall at my feet. Because nobody beats a sannyasi. Sannyasira sarvalok kore namaskar, sannyasira keha ar na kare prahar. That is the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sannyasira sarvalok kore namaskar, sannyasira keha na ar na kare prahar. Everyone falls down at the feet of sannyasi. Nobody beats a sannyasi. That was a Vedic custom. People, and even still it is there. When people see somebody in renounced order, oh, they offer obeisances. It's still there. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is a Supreme Lord, Akhila Koti Brahmanda Nayak, is ready to give up all the opulences to reclaim fallen conditioned souls. Yaktva sudustyaja surepsitarajya lakshmim dharmishta aryavajasa yadagadharanyam Mayamrigam daitayipsitamanvadhavat vande mahapurushate charanaravindam. Tyaktva sudustyaja, he gave up that which is most difficult to give up. Rajya Lakshmi, he gave up his most beautiful wife, he gave up his loving mother. Dharmishta aryavachasa yadagadharanyam, because one of the Brahmana who was not allowed to enter in the Shrivas Angan, when Mahaprabhu was performing his Sankirtan, he cursed Mahaprabhu. You will lose all your material attachments. Dharmishta arevachasaya dagadharanyam. And Mahaprabhu, he entered into the forest of this material world, where Maya Mrigam Daitai Sitam. Maya Mrigam, every living entity in this world is running behind Maya Mriga, trying to fulfill the desires. which never get fulfilled. They are like Maya Mriga. You can never fulfill all your desires. Desires can never be satisfied. They can only be utilized in service of Krishna. Material things can never satisfy a person. Maya Mrigam Daite Sitamanvadhavat. Anvadhavat is running behind. Mahaprabhu is running behind all the living entities, all the conditioned souls. Please take to the chanting of the holy names. Vande Mahapurushate Charanarvindam. Vande Mahapurushate. So that is what is described in Bhagavatam. So therefore, Kaviraj Goswami describes that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, thinking like this, he entered sannyas order. So Mahaprabhu remained as a householder for 24 years, and then from 25th year onwards, he accepted the sannyas order. So when Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas, Prabhupada writes in the purport, at the end of the month of January in 1510, end of January, Mahaprabhu accepted the sannyas order of life. And then after accepting the sannyas, Mahaprabhu attracted the attention of all those who had evaded him. All these people who were trying to, run away from him, all these students, fruitive workers, Mayavadis, fruitive workers, false logicians, Nindaka, Pashandi, all of them, they came and fell at the feet of Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu excused them all. He forgave all of them. And he gave them unalloyed devotional service. That is the, merciful nature of Mahaprabhu. Prabhupada writes, that's how Mahaprabhu was an ideal Acharya. Who is an Acharya? Prabhupada writes, Acharya is one who knows the purport of the scriptures and he behaves exactly according to the rules and regulations of the scriptures. So Prabhupada writes that, the method of one Acharya may be different from another. You see, even the spiritual master Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, two Acharyas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a pioneer of Krishna consciousness movement, and Saraswati Thakur, he is the most powerful Acharya, Simha Guru. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had a little mild, approach towards how to transform the society. But so Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a transformer of the society. But Bhakti Siddhanta, he was a revolutionary. So just like if there is some problem with the building, so one person may say, okay, we'll renovate the building. Oh, there is some problem in this wall. Okay, we can do something here, we can do something there. And other person say, forget it, just break everything and make a new building. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was like that previous person. Okay, you can repair, some problem is there. Saraswati Thakur said nothing doing, will make a new building, and it demolished all the misconceptions very strongly. So Prabhupada writes, every Acharya has a different mood. Everybody is right, because every Acharya is thinking how to engage a person in service of Krishna. Tasmat kenapi upayena manah Krishne niveshayet sarve vidhi nishedasyur etayor eva kinkara. Tasmat kenapi upayena. Somehow or other, the mind should be engaged in Krishna's service. Manah Krishne niveshayet. All the rules and regulations of the scripture, they are meant for this purpose. Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavyo na jatuchit sarve vidhi nishedhasyur etayoreva kinkara. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. All the rules and regulations of the scriptures are meant for this purpose. So therefore Prabhupada writes, an Acharya should devise a means so that somehow or other a person can come to Krishna consciousness. And therefore, Mahaprabhu, why he did all that. Sabanistarila Prabhu Kripa Avatar. Sabanistarite Kore Chaturi Apar. This is a very, again, very interesting, very beautiful verse. Sabanistarite Prabhu Kripa Avatar. Mahaprabhu appeared to deliver each and every living entity. And Sabanistarite Kore Chaturi Apar. And to deliver each and every one, Chaturi Apar. He is devising many methods. He is very, very cleverly devising his plans. Chaturi Apar. That's how Krishna, who is unlimitedly intelligent, he's using all his intelligence how to reclaim these fallen conditioned souls. Because, you know, Krishna can do everything, but he does not do one thing. He never interferes in the free will of the insignificant living entity. Every one of us, we have insignificant free will. We are insignificant and our free will is insignificant. And Krishna is all powerful and his will is all powerful. But that supreme personality with all powerful will, he does not interfere in the insignificant willpower of an insignificant living entity. That is the Supreme Lord, because he wants every one of us to individually come close to him on our own, voluntarily. That is love. Love cannot be forced. So somehow or other, he is, trying to give some, good experience, or some way he's trying to bring a person close to Krishna, close to himself. So Prabhupada writes, it is a concern of an acharya to show mercy to fallen conditioned souls. That's what Prabhupada would tell. It takes even gallons of blood to make one living entity devotee. It is not so easy. A preacher of Krishna consciousness has to work very, very hard to make each and every living entity close, bring him close to Krishna. So Desha, Kala and Patra, that should be taken into consideration, Prabhupada writes. So a preacher has to use all his intelligence. That's how Prabhupada would give an example. He would tell a story. He said, one time I was talking to a Christian priest and he told me a story. Prabhupada, he was telling that one time there was a Christian preacher and he was preaching to people who are mining in the coal mines. And he was telling them, oh, you are suffering here so much. If you take to Krishna, if you take to, Christianity, and if you take the name of God, then you will go to heaven. And in heaven, it is all, beautiful. It is all light. Everyone is happy. But if you don't take to God, if you don't take the names of Jesus, you will go to hell. Oh, what is hell? Oh, hell means very dark, very dingy. Oh, and what else? Oh, there is not sufficient air and there is no sufficient food there. You will suffer diseases. So he saw that all the workers, they had no expressions on their face. Then he realized, this person, preacher, he realized that actually they were staying in mines whole day. And mine means all these situations are already there. They're experiencing every day. So they had no, expression on their face. So then he thought, okay, how to, convince them, said. Then he found out that these people, they spend their time reading newspaper. So then he said, oh, and in hell, there is no newspaper. He said, oh, then we don't want to go to hell. Please tell us how to go to heaven. That is the role of a preacher. Somehow or other, attract the minds of conditioned souls. Again, Prabhupada writes, envious people, they criticize our movement. They criticize when our boys and girls preach together. Just see, in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is not giving his heart and emotions there. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he is writing the purport, what he is going through as a person. And Prabhupada writes, in Europe and America, girls and boys, they mingle unrestrictedly, and it is not possible to completely separate them, but we are not allowing them to stay, together. They are getting married and they are, following rules and regulations, and they are following, all the Vedic principles. So, but still these envious people, they keep on criticizing us. Sabanis tarite Prabhu chatkare chaturi apar, Prabhupada writes. Chaturi apar. This indicates that Mahaprabhu, he wanted to deliver one and all. Sabanis tarite. One time, Srila Prabhupada was telling his disciples, I want to deliver entire universe and I need help of all of you. That is the extent of magnanimity of a Acharya. That is the ambition of an Acharya. To deliver each and every living entity of the entire universe. That's what Vasudeva told, O Mahaprabhu, let all the sins of all the living entities of this universe come upon me. Please deliver them all. I will suffer for all of them. That is the compassion of an Acharya. So Prabhupada writes, Mahaprabhu, he wants to deliver one and all. And the preacher, Prabhupada writes, the preacher of Krishna consciousness must very strictly follow all the rules and regulations. There should be no compromise. At the same time, should devise a means so that preaching work can flourish. So Prabhupada himself, he never compromised on the basic principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. And many devotees, many people would come and tell Prabhupada, Swamiji, you just change one of your 4 rules and your disciples will increase many times. Prabhupada never compromised. That is the Prabhupada. So therefore, Prabhupada, Kaviraj Goswami tells that all these people, they were converted to Krishna consciousness. They became devotees. Apart from one, only the impersonalists, they evaded him. They did not become devotees. So Prabhupada writes that after becoming sannyasi, Mahaprabhu converted all of them. Many fruitive workers were transformed. Many false logicians like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was transformed. Many blasphemers like Prakashananda Saraswati were transformed. But this Prakashananda Saraswati comes in the category of Mayavadi also. After taking sannyas, Mayavadis were not getting transformed. Mahaprabhu transformed Jagai Madhai. They were atheists. They were degraded. Adhama Paduya. Everybody was transformed, but Mayavadis, they did not take to Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada writes, so there are 2 types of Mayavadis. Kashira Mayavadi and Saranath Mayavadi. Some technical details. Prabhupada writes, Kashi Mayavadi means they tell, oh, this spiritual world is simply void. And Sarnath Mayavadis, they do not believe in absolute truth altogether. They are atheists. So Prabhupada describes very strongly, Mayavadi Krishne Aparadhi. The Mayavadis, because they do not accept the form of Lord, they are the offenders. And for this offense, they will go to hell. So Mahaprabhu, he delivered everyone, but only Mayavadis were remaining. So now what happened after Mahaprabhu took sannyas? He was going to Vrindavan and he went through Varanasi. And Varanasi was a hub of Mayavadi followers. Now, some pastime starts in Ādī-Līlā. So one pastime was Miniketan Ramadas. Now this is the second pastime coming here. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after taking sannyas, he is going to Vrindavan, and on the way he passes through Varanasi. which was the hub of all the Mayavadis. And when these Mayavadis, they came to know that, oh, there is a young sannyasi who is there in Varanasi, they started blaspheming him, criticizing him. And they were telling, oh, this, see, sannyasi hoya kore gayan nachan, na kare vedanta patha kore sankirtan. Oh, just see this young sannyasi, gayan nachan, he is just chanting and dancing, he is not studying Vedanta. Na kare vedanta patha kore sankirtan, and he is doing sankirtan. Prabhupada writes, fortunately or unfortunately, we also meet such Mayavadis. So, interesting word uses Prabhupada is using. Fortunately or unfortunately. Why fortunately? Why unfortunately? Fortunately, because devotee of the Lord wants to establish the supremacy of Krishna. And any chance to establish the supremacy of Krishna is fortune for a devotee. And unfortunate means, oh, devotee is not interested in hearing all these nonsense talks of Mayavadis. So Prabhupada writes, fortunately and unfortunately, we also meet such Mayavadis who criticize and accuse us of that we are not interested in study. We are just chanting and dancing. And then Prabhupada says, no Mayavadi school can present as many books as we have presented. And actually, it is a fact. The amount of book Prabhupada has written, it is unimaginable for any ordinary mortal to do that. He wrote more than 60 books. It is unimaginable. And that too in just such a short span of time. One person came to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, I have written a commentary on Caitanya Caritāmrta, and it took me 8 years to write it just on Ādī-Līlā. Prabhupada said, I have written entire Caitanya Caritāmrta in 2 years. So, to the extent Prabhupada has written these books, such pace and such circumstances, it is unimaginable. The way Prabhupada was working, it is unfathomable for many. He would travel at such fast pace and he would just set his time and he would continue, no jet lag. Oh, it is daytime, oh, nighttime, continue. That was Prabhupada, because he was empowered by Krishna. Without being empowered by Krishna, nobody can do such thing. Only empowered Acharya can do such unimaginable things. So that's how Prabhupada did it. So Prabhupada writes, no Mayavadi can write as many books as we have. And just see, still they are accusing us that we are not interested in studying. Such accusations are completely false. And these Mayavadis, they are just proud of their study, but they don't know the purpose of their study. They call themselves as Vedanti. Vedanti means one who knows the purpose of Vedanta. Vedaisha sarvairahameva vedyo. And they don't accept Krishna. That is their foolishness. And then Prabhupada writes, all these Mayavadis, they don't study Bhagavatam because they don't accept Bhagavatam, but Bhagavatam is the natural commentary of Vedanta Sutra. And then Prabhupada tells, even Sripad Shankaracharya himself has given stress that if you study Vedanta philosophy and don't worship Krishna, if you don't worship the form of Krishna, then you will be lost. Bhajagovindam, 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 Mudmate, Samprapte, Sannihite Kale, Nahi Rakshati Dukrin Karne. Actually, in some other purport, Prabhupada writes, quotes this, it will come, where it tells that, please do not speculate. Shankaracharya himself speaks these words. By adding Dukrin, Dukrin means adding prefix and suffix. That's how Mayavadis, they do all the jugglery of the word, by adding some words. So Shankaracharya says, Are Bhaj Govindam, worship Krishna, O fool, Mudmate, Samprapte sannihite kale, at the time of death, all your word jugglery will not come to your help. You know. And Mayavadis, they tell one thing. Vedanta vakyeshu sadaramantah kaupinavanta khalu bhagyavanta. That is Mayavad, the tagline of Mayavadis. Vedanta vakyeshu sadaramanta. We always enjoy Vedanta. Sadaramanta. Sannyasi kaupinavanta khalu bhagyavanta. A sannyasi who has accepted the sannyas order of life, wearing only a loincloth, is most fortunate. Khalu bhagyavanta. So that is their conception. So therefore, these Mayavadis, they were blaspheming Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Oh, Vedant na kare, Vedanta part kare, Sankirtan. Oh, he's not doing Vedanta part, just doing Sankirtan. Murkha sannyasi nij dharma nahi jane, bhavuk hoya phere bhavuke rasane. Oh, Murkha sannyasi, he's a foolish sannyasi. This Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's an illiterate sannyasi. They would call him, they were criticizing, oh, he's an illiterate sannyasi. He does not know any Vedanta. Nij dharma nahi jane, he does not even know his dharma. What is the dharma of a sannyasi? Bhavuk hoya phere bhavuke rasane. Oh, he is, guided by sentimentalists, and he's roaming around with other sentimental people. Just see. He does not know his dharma. But the sannyasi should do Vedanta part. And this he is chanting and dancing. Prabhupada writes, everyone admires Krishna consciousness movement. Everyone admires when they see the ecstatic dancing of devotees. But these Mayavadis, they will always criticize us. So Mayavadis, they cannot appreciate the activities of Krishna consciousness. But just see the response of Mahaprabhu here. Although everyone is criticizing him, what is his mood? He is not retaliating. He came to know all the blasphemy. That is not that he was not aware. Because everyone in Varanasi, Mahaprabhu was a very, very powerful and very attractive personality. Wherever he went, he attracted the minds and attention of each and every personality. Because he is Supreme Lord. Throughout South India Yatra, wherever he went, he attracted attention of everyone. So everyone knew that, oh, this Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is a sannyasi and he's blasphemed by all these Mayavadis. So people would come and tell him. So he knew. But what was the response of Mahaprabhu? Very exemplary. Mahaprabhu just smiled. When he heard his blasphemy, he smiled. He rejected all the accusations. He did not even talk to these Mayavadis. So Prabhupada writes, this is a mood of a Krishna conscious person. He does not like to converse with Mayavadis, and he is not at all disturbed when somebody criticizes him. So one should not waste his time in unnecessary debate. But if somebody is challenging the authenticity of our process, then we should establish it. Then we should present all the logic, all the argument, and establish it. So Mahaprabhu, he just smiled and then he went away. He proceeded to Mathura. He didn't even talk to them. He proceeded to Mathura. He went to Vrindavan. He spent 1 month in Vrindavan, and then he returned. And when he returned back, he returned to through the same way, because he wanted to deliver all these sannyasis, all these Mayavadis. So, same situation again came. So this time he stayed at the house of Chandrasekhar. So another interesting thing Mahaprabhu is doing here. So Chandrasekhar, from caste, he is a Shudra or Kayastha. And according to the principles, a sannyasi should not stay at the house of a Kayastha or a Shudra. But again, Mahaprabhu, he stayed because he wanted to prove that a devotee is better than anyone else. You should not look a devotee from an external point of view. That is a offense. That's what Nectar of Instruction also, Rupa Goswami tells. Drishtai swabhava janitaiva pushascha doshai gangam basamna kalu buddha buddha phena pankai. Drishtai swabhava janita. All the faults which are visible in the body of a devotee because of his birth, because of his previous conditionings, one should not see. Just like if somebody goes to Ganga and to take bath and he sees some bubbles, some dirt, he doesn't tell, oh, I'll not take bath in Ganga. He just removes that and then takes bath because he knows the purity of Ganga. So a devotee is always beyond material conceptions. One should not see a devotee from material point of view. Oh, he's a South Indian devotee, he's a North Indian devotee, he is from Bengal, he's from Gujarat, he's from China, he's from Africa. No. So therefore, to establish this, Mahaprabhu stayed at the house of Chandrasekharacharya. And then Prabhupada writes in detail, who is this Chandrasekharacharya? So he says, Chandrasekhar, he was a clerk from the Kayasth family in Upper India, North India. And then he tells about there is a sect, there is a class of people in Bengal also. They are also called Kayasth, and they are called Swarna Malik. So Prabhupada talks about Swarna Malik because he also was born in that same family. So who is this Swarna Malik? Prabhupada writes about Swarna Malik. So Prabhupada writes, and before the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this Swarna Malik, this community, it was condemned by a king called Ballal Sen. So what had happened was that this Swarna Vanik family, they were, giving all the gold and they were trading with this king, Ballal Sen. And Ballal Sen used to borrow money from this Swarna Vanik community. But somehow Ballal Sen got bankrupt, and Swarna Vanik Malik family community, they stopped giving him any money. Ballal Sen became angry and he called Brahmanas and he ostracized the entire community of this Swarna Malik. And that's how they were declared as Kayasthas or Shudras. So Prabhupada gives some background of this Vanik family, about this Chandrasekhar. Chandrasekhar was also Vanik. So Kaviraj Goswami says, as a principle, Mahaprabhu regularly accepted food at the house of Tapan Mishra, and he would stay at the house of Chandrasekharacharya. So he would go to Tapan Mishra's place to take food. And who was Tapan Mishra? Tapan Mishra was the same personality who Mahaprabhu met in Bangladesh. When Mahaprabhu Nimai Pandit went to Bangladesh, there he met Tapan Mishra and he was confused about the goal of life because he was reading so many scriptures and he was confused. So one day he was sleeping and a very effulgent personality came in his dream and said, tomorrow morning, one personality will come and he will be your teacher. He will be your guru. He'll guide you. So next day, Nimai Pandit came. And Nimai Pandit told that you have read so many scriptures. Bahushaste bhuvakye chitte brahma hoye. Because you have read so many scriptures, that's why you are confused. So you go to Varanasi and settle there. I will come in the future and meet you. Mahaprabhu had his entire plan ready. He wanted to deliver all these people. So that's why he sent Tapan Mishra. And who was Tapan Mishra? Tapan Mishra was the father of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And that's how Gopal Bhatta Goswami, because Tapan Mishra was staying in Varanasi. So Gopal Bhatta, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. He was the son of, he was the Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was the son of Tapan Mishra. So Raghunath Bhatta Goswami also became a very powerful scholar, and he actually became the king, became the spiritual master of all these kings of Amir dynasty, headed by Man Singh. That is some another background story about that. So Mahaprabhu, he stayed at the house of Chandrasekhar Acharya, and he would take food at the house of Tapan Mishra. And Mahaprabhu stayed continuously for 2 months there, and he taught devotional service to Tapan Mishra. And in those 2 months, Sanatan Goswami came there, and Mahaprabhu gave very detailed instructions, Sanatan Siksha, and for 2 months, and on the basis of Bhagavatam and all the scriptures, Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatan Goswami. So Kaviraj Goswami is writing that, all that. Now, what was happening? While Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying at the place of Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar Acharya, they were not happy. Why? Because they were hearing criticism of Mahaprabhu every day. Kate kashuni ba Prabhu tomara nindan, na pare sahite ba chhadi ba jivan. Kate kashuni ba Mahaprabhu. Oh, so one day they went to Mahaprabhu and they told, till when? How long can we tolerate your blasphemy? Oh my Lord, it is better to give up our life than to hear the blasphemy. Na pare sahite, we cannot tolerate. Chhadi ba jivan, will die. Better to give up the body. That is how, when somebody is criticizing a devotee, better to leave that place immediately. If you cannot, counter argue, if you cannot leave, better you cut off the tongue of that person and die, commit suicide. That is the extent Vaishnava Ninda is deadly. So therefore, as a devotee, we should be very, very careful not to do Vaishnava Ninda, Vaishnava Aparad. Criticizing devotee is most deadly, and to hear criticism is equally deadly, equally dangerous. So this Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar, they are telling, oh Mahaprabhu, all these Mayavadis, they are criticizing you, and we cannot tolerate this situation. Every day they are criticizing. Prabhupada writes that this Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar, they were not able to counter argue. They knew that Mahaprabhu is supreme, and all these people, they are behaving in a wrong way, but they were not powerful enough to retaliate and give counter argument. Prabhupada says that is a Kanishtha devotee. Kanishtha devotee means he knows that, oh, it should not be done, but I should not hear this criticism, but I am not able to counter argue and establish the right position of this person or this devotee. So this person, he is pained hearing the criticism of a devotee, but he cannot defend that devotee. So therefore, they are called as Kanishta Adhikari. Prabhupada writes that. So therefore, Mahaprabhu, so Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar, they are telling Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu, he smiled. Again, he just smiled. Because, again, the blasphemy was for him. He was getting criticized. So Prabhupada writes that devotee never feels offended, or he never becomes angry when somebody is criticizing him. But if somebody criticizes Supreme Lord, or somebody criticizes devotees of the Lord, then one should never tolerate. Devotee never tolerates. So that's how we should behave. Trina Vajradapi Kathora Kusumadapi Komal. When criticism is for me, I will tolerate. But if somebody is criticizing devotees, no tolerance. Zero tolerance if somebody is criticizing devotees. The more we hear criticism, if we give simple oral reception to the criticism of a devotee, even in a neutral way, will get affected. So better not to hear the criticism of the devotees. So Mahaprabhu, he was silent, and as they were telling, a Brahmana came and he fell at the feet of Mahaprabhu and he submitted his request. And he said, "Oh my dear Lord, I have invited all the sannyasis of Varanasi, and I have come to invite you also. My desires will be fulfilled if you accept my invitation." Brahmana knew that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the only Vaishnava sannyasi and he does not associate with all these another Mayavadi sannyasis. But still, he came. Why he came? He was inspired by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because it is logical, right? If you know that this person does not go to associate with Mayavadi sannyasis, so why I should go and call him? He will never come. But he was inspired by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, because Mahaprabhu wanted to deliver all these Mayavadi sannyasis. So this Brahmana came and he knew that this is to convince Mahaprabhu is difficult. So he fell at the feet of Mahaprabhu, begging him, "Please accept my invitation." And he tells, "My dear Lord, I know that you never mix with other Mayavadis, but please, be merciful. It is my request." So Prabhupada writes, an Acharya is very strict in following the rules and regulations. He is hard as thunderbolt, and he is as soft as rose also. So Acharya, he never compromises, but sometimes he slackens this policy, Prabhupada writes. Sometimes he slackens. Why? Again, for the welfare of people in general. Just like in the case of Prabhupada, one time Prabhupada went to one of the life members' home, and this lady in Delhi, she had helped Prabhupada to organize Pandal program, and there was big Pandal program. 10,000 people were coming every day, and she sponsored everything. Then she invited Prabhupada. So Prabhupada went to her home along with some of the disciples, and they forgot to tell this lady that they don't eat onion garlic. So there was onion and garlic, and Prabhupada is eating, and all the other disciples, they see, there is onion in that. So one person told Prabhupada, softly whispered in his ear, "Prabhupada, there is onion in that." Prabhupada said, "There is no onion and garlic in this. Eat it." So everybody ate. So sometimes Acharya slackens this policy, his own strict policy. But why? For the welfare of people in general. Because Prabhupada knew that if, this should have been told earlier. And this was their mistake. And he knew that, this lady is so very generous and benevolent, and she has helped us. So we should reciprocate properly so that she can, become favorable and she can take to Krishna consciousness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he accepted. He smiled and he accepted the invitation of this Brahmana. Why? Just to show mercy to all the Mayavadis. So we'll stop here and then we'll continue next time, tomorrow. Any questions anybody has? Okay, so there are no questions it seems, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai.